Thank you, Mr. President. I move adoption of the amendment, waive the reading, and seek leave to summarize.
Will you remark further?
Thank you, Mr. President. This amendment is, and it's something that many of you have seen before. This is the summary of the Republican biennial budget. This is our proposal, and I'd like to stand here for a few minutes and talk about this budget. I am proud to present this opportunity, which is a balanced, line-by-line, fully vetted budget. This budget contains net general fund appropriations of $18.8 billion in fiscal year 2018 and $19.2 in fiscal year 19, which represents a growth rate of 2%. There is a surplus of $1.1 million in 2018 and $2.2 million in 2019. The budget is $750 million under 0.7 under the proposed spending cap in 18 and $189 million under that cap in 2019. And that cap calculation is based on debt service excluded. The budget increases statutory grant municipal aid by $64.8 million between 2017 and 18, and by $47.4 million between fiscal year 2018 and 19. By way of an example, Mr. President, the City of Hartford would receive an additional $7.2 million next year and an additional $14 million in the following year. Newington would receive an additional $610,000 and $1.4 million in the following year. And West Haven, as an example, receives an additional $3.2 million next year and an additional $5.6 million next year. Overall, this closes the deficit without new taxes. It increases education funding and includes a new ECS formula. The budget stabilizes municipal aid and proposes not to add new financial burdens on our cities and towns. The budget maintains a tax-exempt status for hospitals to protect them from any local hospital property tax. It preserves core government services by restoring funding for social services and protecting funds for services and programs that benefit the people whom are most in need. Mr. President, we prioritize transportation needs and stabilize funding without additional of new tolls or taxes. And this lower taxes for retirees and helps seniors to age in place. We have new programs that would enhance funding for state parks and tourism, and it streamlines government while providing for structural change. A little bit about the education cost-sharing formula. I'll begin to summarize just a few items. Fully functioning formula that counts current enrollment using a foundation grant base of $99,638. It provides a weight of 30% for students that receive free and reduced price lunch. It contains additional weight of 5% for those communities that have more than 75% of the population eligible for free or reduced price lunch. It provides a weight of 15% for English language learners and an additional 3 to 6% for communities that have the Public Investment Community Index, which costs about $9.4 million. The proposal weights the net equalized grand list at 70% and medium household income at 30%. And when the proposed ECS formula is fully implemented, the state will be spending $678.7 million more on ECS. The proposal recommends flat funding municipalities that would have received a reduction in ECS as a result of the formula in the next fiscal year, 2018. It would then phase in reductions equally for those municipalities over a 10-year period beginning in 2019. For a municipality that is due to receive an increase, the proposal recommends phasing that increase over a 10-year period. Similar to the governor, we propose to seek to transfer the portion of the ECS grant that is attributed to special education, which is approximately 22% of the number, and combines the $447 with the current excess cost account and an additional $10 million, creating a combined pool of $597.6 million. There is a formula for those funds to be distributed, weighted through communities based on a grand list. General reductions. This budget recommends rolling forward the 2017 holdbacks, except for core services that this budget seeks to protect. Municipal aid, it does not require municipalities to assume any cost associated with teachers' retirement, and it recommends eliminating the general fund revenue and car tax portion of the municipal revenue sharing account, which allows $340 million in 2018 and $349 million in 2019 to remain in the general fund. It recommends additional mandate relief. As far as transportation goes, Mr. President, this contains multiple policy changes to make the Special Transportation Fund solvent and prevent it from entering a deficiency. It does move the transportation-related revenue move transportation-related revenue into the Special Transportation Fund to make that solvent through 2022 and beyond. Our prioritized progress for funding transportation infrastructure upgrades provides $62 billion over 30 years, again without additional taxes or tolls. There is a number of tax reductions that we propose over time, exempting all Social Security from taxes as of January 1 for single income tax filers with adjusted gross income below $75,000 and joint filers below $100,000, and a 7-year phase-in for all pensions and annuity income as of January 1 for single income tax filers with adjusted gross income for 75 and families, joint filers with below 100. This is an important opportunity, we believe, that will send a clear message to those folks who live on pensions that we are becoming a more friendly state from where to live. There are labor savings contemplated in this budget. Originally, we proposed the governor's labor saving target of $700 million in 2018 and $892.4 million in 19, which was a bit more than the governor's in fiscal year 19 based on a annualized medical inflation. Since the consensus revenues were released and an analysis of the CBEC deal was conducted, the budget was updated to include additional savings of $136.9 million more in 18 and $188.9 million more in 19, which was an equal percentage of the labor savings proposed in the original budget applied to the additional deficit. So those labor savings now total $836 million in 18 and a little over $1 billion in 19. This budget proposes to restore funding for veterans, headstones, and burial expenses, and two items that we propose differently, which is a way to fund parks in an effort to stabilize the state's protection administration of parks. The budget contemplates a new environmental conservation account. We've seen this before. This has been discussed. We adopt this with a $5 annual state park pass, allowing those Connecticut registrations to access any and all parks for no charge. Just simply the registration plate on their vehicle would suffice. We think that by keeping a fund in place for that and generating new revenues will go a long way to beginning the stabilization of funding items for our state parks, which are so valuable to the quality of life here in the state of Connecticut. And hopefully we can gather more and more into that special revenue fund so that it can be creatively implemented on new programs and new initiatives to keep the parks moving forward. Tourism, there's been a lot of talk about the tourism multiplier through the state of Connecticut, that every dollar that we spend on tourism provides a large return. And so this budget contemplates doing the same thing by taking some dollars from the 1.5% of the current hotel occupancy tax and directing it to tourism. So those, Mr. President, are some of the highlights of this budget. We feel very confident that this would be a good budget for which to begin the budget discussion in earnest here in the circle and in other parts of the building, so that we can begin the process of identifying that budget that is best suited to move the needs of the state of Connecticut forward and continue into a new direction. So at this point, I'd like to yield to Senator Frantz. Thank you.
Senator